I think it's a very solid piece of work that tells a very important story in a way which is unfussy and unflashy and sort of unencumbered by stylistic distraction. So the first thing I'd say is I think people should go and see it because I think it's important and I think it's really solidly well done. Plaudits to Carey Mulligan because what she manages to do is to take that composite character Maud, who is basically on the outskirts, on the fringes of this, and during the course of the story is brought into the centre. So we follow her from being an outsider, somebody who agrees with women's rights, but because of her dedication to her husband, her son is trying to stay on the outside of it. But she is then brought in, I mean, in a slightly too neat way, is that she ends up testifying about her experience, but that's fine. That's a dramatic device, which then allows her to be brought further and further in. And then she ends up obviously being confronted by Brendan Gleeson's inspector, who basically starts to treat her as a terrorist. And then what happens is that the film then follows that arc in terms of her radicalisation and the resistance that she meets. I think the most important thing the film does, and it was talked about there in that interview, is to make clear that this was a hard-scrabble battle. It was fought in very, very bleak terms. I mean, this is a film which is talking about imprisonment. This film is talking about beatings. This is a film which is talking about hunger strikes. This is a film which is talking about forced feedings. I mean, this is a struggle which is as hard won as any struggle for independence. And the film reminds you of that. And it's funny because obviously, you brought up at the beginning the Mary Poppins thing, and it's absolutely, this is completely the antithesis of this. It's gritty. The palette of it is kind of rather grey. You can sort of smell the griminess of London streets. Certainly when you're there in that laundry, you can almost feel the noxious chemicals getting, inside your head. So I think all of that works very well. If I have a criticism at all, it's that for a story which is about an extraordinary revolutionary moment in history, it's the film itself is fairly kind of formally conservative. It follows very sort of straightforward storytelling because there's nothing radical about the filmmaking itself. That said, I think the decision has been made to tell the story straight, to tell the story in a way which is completely populist and accessible without taking the hard edges of it. If you compare it to, for example, Abby Morgan's previous work on The Iron Lady, which kind of parked politics in favour of looking at taking a much more personal view. This is a much more polemical work. This is a work which says, I have this story to tell, and this story is an important historical, and you need to understand the history, and you need to understand how it works. But we also understand that the way that you will be told this story is through the eyes of one character who ventures in from the outside to the centre. A very, very strong performance by Helena Bonham Carter. I mean, you talk there about Meryl Streep, it's a fleeting cameo by Meryl Streep. It's something which is almost like a kind of a seal of approval. But the real firebrand in the centre of all this is Helena Bonham Carter. I think her performance was terrific, as indeed is Anne-Marie Duff's. And once again, plaudits to Carey Mulligan for taking a character who is a composite character. You can see all the elements that they are investing into that character and still managing to make it into something which is individual and distinctive and doesn't just feel like a cipher.